I never thought I'd be told I was too old to be loved by my own grandchildren. It started off subtle, quiet glances, polite distance, the kind of change you don't notice until it's too late. I'm Miriam, 68 years old, a retired kindergarten teacher who once believed my son Daniel had married a kind, respectful woman. Her name is Lena, sharp tongue, manicured perfection, always smiling in public. And she hated that her kids adored me. I used to babysit Emma and Caleb twice a week. Story time, pancakes with whipped cream, finger painting on the patio. I wasn't just grandma, I was home for them. Until Lena started cutting back the visits. First it was, oh, they've got piano. Then it was, they're too tired today. And suddenly, I hadn't seen them in weeks. Then came the moment that sliced me open like a paper cut to the soul. It was a Sunday. I reached out to hug Emma. She hesitated, looked over her shoulder, and that's when I heard Lena whisper, just loud enough for the little girl to hear, "Don't let grandma kiss you too much. Old people carry germs." My arms froze midair. Emma stepped back. No one said anything. Not Daniel. Not even Emma, who just fiddled with the hem of her dress, her eyes down. I swallowed hard and pretended I didn't hear. Pretended I didn't feel. I stayed through the rest of brunch, sitting like furniture, invisible. Afterward, Lena handed me a grocery bag of leftovers like a favor and smiled. "It's best if we keep some space. Kids get confused when boundaries blur." Boundaries.I. Walked home that day in silence, wind in my hair, tears in my throat. I raised that boy. I gave him my everything, and now, I wasn't even welcome to hold his children. That's when something inside me shifted the following week. I didn't get a single call. No text, no photo updates. No silly voice messages from Caleb like he used to send before bedtime. So I called Daniel. It went straight to voicemail. I didn't panic. Maybe they were busy. But on Tuesday, I drove by their house, like a fool chasing memories, just in time to see Lena and the kids in the front yard. They were playing with water balloons, the kind I used to bring over every summer. I didn't want to intrude, so I stayed in my car until Emma saw me through the windshield. Her face lit up, but before she could run over, Lena's voice cracked. "The air, Emma, inside now." The joy on my granddaughter's face faded. She obeyed. No goodbye, no wave. Just a quiet retreat, like she'd done something wrong. Like loving me was wrong. I sat in my car, hands on the wheel, and stared at my son's house, a house I helped them buy. $50,000 from my retirement savings, no strings attached. Just love, support. Family. Later that evening, I finally got Daniel on the phone. His voice was tight, rehearsed. "Mom, Lena and I have been talking. We really appreciate everything you've done, but we think the kids are getting too attached. It's confusing them." "Confusing them how?" I asked, stunned. "It's just ... Lena's trying to establish her own parenting rhythm, and your presence. It kind of undermines that. Undermines. I was the one who rocked Emma through colic, who picked up Caleb when Lena forgot daycare pickup 3 times in 1 month. I was the one who made sure they had lunchboxes packed and clean socks on holidays. I bit my tongue. "Daniel, are you saying I shouldn't come by anymore?" He hesitated. That silence said more than words. "We just need space. That's all." That night, I cried in the bath, not loud sobs. The quiet kind. The kind that shakes your chest and makes your throat burn because you're trying so hard not to fall apart. And when I got out, I stared at my reflection, wrinkled, gray, fading. Then I walked to my bedroom, pulled open my file cabinet, and found the deed. The house, their house, bought with my help. If I was going to be treated like a stranger, then maybe it was time I started acting like one. Asterisk, it was my 70th birthday. I hadn't expected much. Just a simple dinner, maybe a small cake with my grandkids around me. I would have been happy with just a few hugs, maybe a handmade card from little Ava or Liam. Instead, what I got was silence. No greetings, no invitations. Just the hum of a dishwasher in the kitchen and the distant sound of a television I wasn't allowed to touch. I stood in the hallway for a long time that morning, watching from the shadows as my son Michael and his wife Jenna ushered the children into the car. They were dressed up. Ava wore a sparkly pink dress, her fancy one. She always called it tanned. Liam had his little vest and bootie on, fumbling with the seatbelt like he was in a rush to get to something exciting. "Where are you going?" I finally asked. Stepping forward, my voice was small even to my own ears. Jenna didn't look up from her phone. "Brunch with friends." Michael gave me a fleeting glance but said nothing. I stood there in my slippers, gripping the doorframe like it was the only thing holding me upright. "I thought we might do something today." I asked again. "It's my birthday." A long pause. "Oh," Jenna said, raising an eyebrow. "Right? I forgot." She didn't apologize. She didn't even pretend to be sorry. Michael coughed, awkward and cornered, and mumbled something about getting back early. But I knew they wouldn't. And even if they did, the damage had already been done. They left me standing on the porch. Alone that evening, I made myself a bowl of soup and sat in the corner of the dining room, the same table where I'd once hosted Thanksgiving dinners, the same room that now held only shadows. No candles, no children's laughter, just me. And the sound of Jenna's voice floating down the hallway as she FaceTimed someone, laughing loudly like the woman of the house. Later that night, Liam snuck into my room. He looked guilty, like he had done something wrong. "Grandma," he whispered, "we had cake at the restaurant. Ava said it was for you." I forced a smile. "Did you have fun?" He nodded. "But I wanted to blow out candles with you." I hugged him tightly, not saying a word, just letting the silence speak what I couldn't. In that moment, I felt both seen and unseen, held in a child's embrace, yet invisible to the adults who were supposed to protect that bond. It wasn't just forgetfulness anymore. It was erasure. Jenna had made it clear, over and over, in all the ways that didn't require shouting. I didn't belong. I was too old, too traditional, too in the way. She didn't say it outright. She didn't have to. She just made sure the kids were always busy when I was around. Dance practice, sleepovers, screen time. "They're tired," she'd say. "They need their routine." What she meant was, they don't need you, but I could see it now. So clearly, so painfully, she was drawing a line around her perfect little family, and I was on the outside of it. That night, I wrote in my journal. I hadn't done that in years. My hands trembled slightly as I put pen to paper, but the words flowed faster than I expected. They took my birthday, but I will not let them take my dignity. This wasn't just about one forgotten day. It was about everything I had allowed myself to tolerate: the quiet dismissals, the subtle jabs, the stolen moments with my grandchildren. I was shrinking in a house I used to command, and I was done shrinking. The war Jenna had declared wasn't loud, it was silent, sugar-coated, cloaked in politeness, but make no mistake, it was a war, and now I was going to fight back, quietly, strategically, but with every ounce of strength I had left. It started small. The morning after my forgotten birthday, I walked into the kitchen and made myself a full breakfast: eggs, toast, coffee, the whole thing. Not for the house, not for the kids, not for Jenna or Michael. Just me. Jenna walked in halfway through, barefoot, and still in her robe, scrolling her phone like she couldn't be bothered to look up. She stopped mid-scroll, her eyes narrowing at the sizzling pan. "Are you making a mess this early?" she asked, voice clipped. "Not even a good morning?" I didn't flinch. "I cleaned it already," I said, "and I'm eating alone." That last part hung in the air like smoke. She didn't like that. She wasn't used to me doing things for myself. Over the next few days, I made it a point to stop doing all the little things I used to handle for her. I stopped folding the kids' laundry. I stopped washing dishes that weren't mine. I stopped baking snacks for school, even though Liam loved my banana bread. I wasn't trying to punish them. I was simply done being invisible and useful. At first, Jenna didn't notice. She probably thought I was just tired, but then it started to inconvenience her. One morning, she stormed into the living room holding a pile of wrinkled kids' clothes. "Why didn't you do the laundry yesterday? Ava had a spelling test today. She needed her lucky skirt." I looked her dead in the eye. "I don't do laundry anymore. That's your responsibility." She stared at me like I had spoken in a foreign language. Her lips parted, about to snap something back, but then she stopped herself, walked away. Michael didn't say a word. Of course he didn't. He never did. What broke me wasn't the chores or the constant disrespect. It was the way they started scheduling their lives around excluding me. Playdates that never included Grandma. Weekend trips to reset as a nuclear family. And when I'd asked to join, Jenna would smile that thin plastic smile of hers and say, "You really should rest. Doris, you've done enough." Done enough. I raised Michael. I worked nights to help him through college. I held his hand when his first girlfriend dumped him, and now I was done. No, I was just beginning. One evening while they were all out, I walked into Michael's office. It used to be the guest room. Now it was his workspace, filled with dual monitors and stacks of real estate brochures. But that's not what I was there for. I opened the file cabinet. It wasn't snooping. Not really. I had every right to know, because tucked behind stacks of contracts was something I hadn't seen in years. The deed to this house. The house my late husband and I paid off dollar by dollar. My name was still on it. No one had taken me off. No one could not without my signature. My hands shook as I held the paper, but not from fear. It was fire. That night I didn't sleep. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, hearing Jenna laugh from the other room. Her confidence was loud, smug. She had ruled this house for years with her passive-aggressive control, but she forgot one thing: she wasn't the owner. I was. I made an appointment the next day with a lawyer my old friend recommended. I brought the deed, explained the situation, and he smiled with the kind of smirk lawyers wear when they smell leverage. You still have full rights, he said. You can rent, you can sell. Hell, you can kick them out if you wanted. And just like that, my spine straightened. I didn't want revenge. I wanted my space back, my peace, my dignity. So I made a quiet decision that day, not an emotional one, not loud, not messy, but permanent. They would feel what it meant to take someone for granted, especially someone who built the very floor they walked on. I didn't make a big announcement. That would have been satisfying, sure, but I wasn't doing this for drama. I was doing this for freedom, for dignity. So I moved in silence. 3 weeks after visiting the lawyer, I transferred partial ownership of the house into a trust with my name as the sole beneficiary. I drew up a rental agreement. I created a new bank account. I changed the locks. That same day, I called a locksmith to rekey the front door. I didn't tell Michael or Jenna in advance. I wanted them to ask questions, and ask they did. It happened. On a Tuesday evening, they came home from picking up the kids and found their keys. Didn't work. Jenna knocked lightly at first, then louder. I waited. When her knocks turned to fists, I opened the door. Slowly. What the hell is going on? She barked. The lock doesn't work. I stared at her with the calmness of a woman who'd already made peace with the storm. The locks changed. You what? Michael asked, stepping in, brows furrowed. Why? Because you're now tenants? I replied evenly. This is no longer your home, it's mine. And if you want to live here, you'll need to start paying rent. Jenna's jaw dropped. You're kicking us out. I said nothing about eviction, I said. You're welcome to stay as tenants. I've already emailed the rental agreement. You have until the end of the month to decide. Silence, thick, cold. Then came the fury. Michael turned to me, his voice tight. You can't do this. I can, I said, holding up a copy of the deed, and I have. Jenna's composure cracked completely. We're your family. How dare you treat us like this? I tilted my head. Funny. That's exactly what I asked myself the day you told my grandchildren not to hug me because I smelled like mothballs. She flinched. Michael looked at me, genuinely confused for a moment, like he hadn't heard that. Maybe he hadn't, but that wasn't my concern anymore. You shut me out, I continued. You made me invisible in my own house. Well, now it's not our house, it's mine, and I won't be invisible anymore. That night they didn't eat dinner. They sulked in the kitchen, whispering behind the cabinets, furious but powerless. Meanwhile, I sat on the porch with a glass of wine, watching the sunset. For once, I had silence on my own terms. Over the next few days, things got awkward fast. Michael tiptoed around me like I was a guest in his home. Jenna, predictably, kept trying to manipulate the situation. Sweet smiles, passive-aggressive questions. I'm just wondering, she said one morning, how long you plan to keep this landlord thing going? Indefinitely, I replied. Unless you want to. Move out. You're free to break the lease, no penalties. She scowled. And what happens to the kids? Where are they supposed to go? They'll go wherever you decide to take them. That's your job. I'm just the property owner now. It hurt to say that. It hurt even more to mean it. I love those kids. I always will. But I won't let Jenna weaponize them anymore. By the end of the month, the first rent check cleared. They stayed. Of course they did. They couldn't afford to go anywhere else. Not with Michael's mediocre job and Jenna's non-existent income, but everything had changed. They cleaned up after themselves. They asked permission before hosting guests. They even started knocking before entering my room. It was petty, maybe. It was dramatic, definitely. But it was the only language they understood. Respect, and I finally had it. Not because I begged, not because I guilt-tripped, but because I rewrote the rules. I reminded them Nestle that this matriarch wasn't to be trampled on. I had been kind. I had been patient now. I was in charge. Michael hadn't looked his mother in the eye in weeks. He'd become a shadow in his own home. Well, Doris's home now. The deed had been transferred, the paperwork signed. He and Jenna were no longer owners, no longer in control. They were tenants, bound by a lease drawn up by Doris's lawyer. Every month, like clockwork, a payment reminder landed in their inbox. And every month, Michael's jaw tightened a little more. But Doris? She had never stood taller. The first rent day had arrived on a cool Monday morning. Jenna had stormed into the kitchen and thrown the envelope on the counter like it had personally insulted her. This is disgusting, she spat. Making your own son pay to live in the house? He grew up in... Doris had looked up from her tea.com and unreadable. Then you're welcome to find somewhere else, she said. voice like velvet over steel. "I'm not forcing anyone to stay." Jenna had no response to that. Because they couldn't afford to leave, they were trapped by their pride, their overspending, their dwindling savings. And Doris knew it. Lucas, her grandson, had started drifting toward her more and more. Despite Jenna's attempts to keep him distant, the boy had eyes. He saw who packed his lunch, who remembered his allergies, who asked how school was not. To weaponize the answer, but because she truly cared. One afternoon, after school, Lucas plopped down beside Doris on the porch swing. "Grandma," he asked, "why doesn't Mommy like when I talk to you?" Doris blinked, hiding the sting of that question. She gently brushed a hand through his hair. "Sometimes grown-ups don't know how to handle their own fears," she said softly. "So they try to control everything around them." Lucas looked confused, but nodded, accepting the answer with a child's wisdom. Later that week, Jenna tried once again to impose her rules: no sweets for Lucas. No extra screen time, no unsupervised time with Grandma. But something shifted. Lucas started pushing back. "You always say Grandma's the problem," he said one night. "But she listens to me. You just yell." Jenna snapped. "You've poisoned him," she hissed at Doris once Michael was out of earshot. "Manipulated him with your cookies and fake sympathy." "I didn't need to poison anyone," Doris said, standing firm. "You did that all on your own with your bitterness." The silence between them became a permanent fixture in the house. Michael, caught in the middle, grew paler by the day. His authority was meaningless now. The shame ate at him like rust. One Sunday morning, he knocked on Doris's bedroom door. "I'm sorry," he said when she opened it. He didn't meet her eyes. "For everything, I don't know how it got this bad." Doris let the silence stretch. She studied her son, not the man he pretended to be, but the boy she raised. Somewhere inside, he was still there, lost, confused, afraid to admit how much he'd let others steer his wheel. "Apologizing is a start," she said, "but change, that takes more than words." Michael nodded slowly. "I'll try." Doris nodded once. "Good start by fixing the bathroom sink. It's been leaking for 3 weeks." And just like that, the power dynamic shifted once again, but this time with purpose. From that day on, Doris didn't just exist in the house. She led it. The next few weeks passed with a strange calm, like the eye of a storm. Doris moved through the house with quiet dignity, her presence no longer ignored. She didn't yell, didn't scold. She didn't have to. Every step she took reminded everyone who owned the floor beneath their feet. Jenna became more agitated by the day. The more Doris did nothing, the more it drove her crazy. She couldn't manipulate her anymore, couldn't guilt-trip her, couldn't use Michael as a shield. That power had vanished the day Doris became their landlord. Then came the final blow, an official letter placed neatly on the kitchen table. It was a 30-day notice, not an eviction. No, Doris was too graceful for that. It was an end to the lease. No drama, no raised voices. Just, "It's time for you both to find your own place." Jenna exploded. "You're kicking out your own son. After all we've done for you?" Doris folded her arms. "You mean after all I've done for you?" Michael didn't say a word. His shoulders sagged as he stared down at the letter, like a man watching his last excuse melt away. "I gave you my savings, my time, my love. You repaid me with control, cruelty, and silence," Doris said, her voice steady. "You made me feel like a burden in my own family. So now I'm just setting boundaries." "But where will we go?" Jenna demanded, suddenly unsure, her voice trembling with disbelief. "That's no longer my problem," Doris replied. "You'll figure it out, just like I did." Lucas watched from the hallway, eyes wide, holding his favorite toy. Doris knelt and opened her arms. He ran into them without hesitation. "You can still visit," she whispered in his ear, "but next time it'll be my rules. And my table." Jenna turned away in stunned silence. For the first time, she realized this wasn't revenge. This was freedom. Doris didn't reclaim the house with rage or resentment. She did it with grace, with boundaries, and with truth. And as the front door closed behind Jenna and Michael a month later, Doris finally exhaled. Her house was hers again. Her peace, too. And this time, she'd never give either away again.